Morning, Glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Greetings, everyone. It's Hugh Hewitt on the 27th day of February, 2020, on the West Coast studio today, talking with retired Air Force General David Deptula, now Dean of the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies, frequent guest. Good morning, General. Good to have you.
Hey, good morning, Hugh. How are you today?
Great. I want to talk to you about preparedness for the pandemic. But first, I read this and I wanted to ask you about it. There was a headline over at the Military Times. U.S. Air Force starts effort to buy a flying car. It's a Jetsons kind of story. They're looking for something called Agility Prime. What do you know about this, General? And are we going to see flying cars anytime soon?
Well, Hugh, it's an effort to basically initiate a variety of efforts to look at how we might be able to supplement the capabilities that are provided by the B-22, which is a vertical lift aircraft, and stimulate industry to look at different and new technologies to bring those kinds of capabilities where you can take off in small, tiny areas and not have to rely on 1,000-foot, multiple 1,000-foot runways. So we'll see how it turns out. But again, it's a stimulus or an idea to get new ideas out there and to get something concrete that can provide a kind of vertical lift capability in small spaces and do it, let's say, within a year.
Now, General, once you get to vertical lift, the biggest hit on the strategic triad that is part of the Air Force is that you need runways, and runways can be targeted. Once you go to vertical lift and develop the technology to the point like the Osprey, then all of the strategic deterrent the Air Force carries can be deployed anywhere in the world, right?
No, that's true. Although, Hugh, I would say we haven't seen the end of the runway. It's important to understand that there are over 18,000 runways with over 6,000 feet of paved surface around the world. So, you can't move them, but guess what? There are a lot of them. But your point's a very valid one in that it would significantly complicate any adversary where attacking fixed bases. So it is one of the technologies we need to continue to explore to expand the capability of the U.S. Air Force.
Now, a couple of questions that are both politics and defense, General Deptula. DARPA came up in the debate the Democrats had on Tuesday night. President Biden or Vice President Biden attempted to say he ran DARPA, and I thought, oh, he's going off here. Could you tell people what DARPA is, just so they have an idea what the Democrats are talking about here?
Yeah, sure. The DARPA is an acronym that stands for Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. It is an arm of the Department of Defense, and its focus is to look at not near-term technologies, but future technologies, and to see how they might be able to bring or research new and innovative ideas and then transition them to reality to provide advanced capability as rapidly and as soon as possible. Some of the capabilities that have evolved out of Defense Advanced Research Project Agency in the past are things like the Internet.
Yep.
Contrary to Al Gore's statement that he invented the Internet, he didn't. The Defense Advanced Research Project Agency did back in the late 80s. So that's just one example that I think everyone would be familiar with.
Yeah, 40 years from now, we'll be talking about whatever DARPA is up to right now. I'm curious then, that transitions to the next question. There's going to be a supplemental appropriation this week. It's going to be between $4 and $10 billion for the coronavirus epidemic preparation. Part of that should go to the military, I think, because the military was where the 1918 pandemic broke out of. How would you allocate that money? Would you give it to DARPA? Would you give it to the various branches for the military hospitals? What would you do with it?
Well, I think I have not looked into or researched this area in depth. So what I'm providing you is simply my opinion based on what you just told me. That kind of money, given the nature of the coronavirus and the immediacy of its impact, is probably best spent by giving it to the services to take action now, and maybe a portion of it to look at how we deal with these kinds of outbreaks in the future. But the immediacy of the problem would indicate to me that the majority of that money is going to go to the services to take action in our health and through our healthcare systems today, as opposed to the majority of it going to future research.
Have you noticed, General, that when we started bringing back coronavirus patients, we sent them to March Air Force Base. We send them to Air and Marine Corps and naval bases, that the military is always where we turn. Inevitably, with Katrina happening, whenever we always go to the National Guard, we go to the American military, and then I guess you just pay for it out of money lying around the building.
Again, it's an excellent question. It depends on the degree to which the facilities and the personnel are required to handle those issues. We're not talking in the current case. You're not talking about large amounts of money. If it's necessary, a supplemental request would go into the current year's budget to find or to ask for funds from Congress to cover these kinds of unanticipated circumstances.
Are you comfortable with our reliance on the military as sort of the first line of civil defense in the United States? I know we have a North American command, but the military's mission is very different from the public health mission. And in 1918 to 1920, got completely scrambled up. The influenza cooked up on military bases full of people preparing to go to war, coming back from war, and it was wholly unprepared for what it did. Do you think it is actually the best prepared part of the world, of the government now?
Again, I'm not that familiar with the Center for Disease Control's option planning for these kinds of events. So I'm speaking only from my knowledge of military preparedness. And it is an institution in the United States that can be relied upon to deal with these kinds of challenges. But there is a larger issue here. And in mentioning Center for Disease Control, that is an organization in the United States which studies, focuses, and plans for these kinds of outcomes. Not having had a look at what their plans are, that's where ultimately we have to turn to seek some of the solutions to the challenges that we have. But in an immediate basis, the military provides the kinds of options that you're seeing unfolding today.
All right.
Quarantine of some numbers of people. But, there's a limit to capacity at those bases.
Now, I want to switch very quickly in the short period of time. I'm all over the map with you because there's a long list of stories, General. I apologize.
Sure.
Secretary Pompeo is going to Doha, and it looks like he's going to sign a peace deal with the Taliban, full of restrictions, but if everything holds, and if there are inter-Afghani talks, it looks like we could be out of there in a year. What do you make of this? When you, the old warrior, you've been dueling with the Taliban for a long time, when you hear about this, what do you think?
It's long overdue. I would tell you that, in fact, the United States met its critical national security objectives with respect to activity in Afghanistan by hostile elements by the end of December of 2001. We removed the Taliban regime from governance. A government friendly to the United States and its allies' principles was established, and the al-Qaeda terrorist training camps were eliminated. We did that so fast in terms of and we did it because we brought our asymmetric advantage, and that was air power, to operate in conjunction with the Northern Alliance or friendly forces on the ground to curb and remove the Taliban. And it's at that point we should have said, see you later, we're out of here. If you do it again, we'll be back. But what happened is we did it so fast, we did it before we deployed hundreds of thousands of pairs of boots on the ground, which was the default solution to military operations. And once they got over there, then we had this example of mission creep, where okay, now what do we do? And we transitioned to nation building, all right, building schools and trying to change a collection of 16th century tribes into a modern Jeffersonian democracy, and that's unobtainium. So it's a long time coming that we get out of there.
And I think it's coming Saturday. Now, I don't know if the Taliban will hold up their end of the very detailed bargain, but we will see, and we'll probably talk about it soon. General David Deptula, Dean of the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies. Follow him on Twitter at Deptula_David. Follow me to the next segment here on